Hi, everyone here and around the world. I have my beautiful chocolate with me today, and Fluffy is waiting about 6 feet away. Like, I'm here, but I may or may not come up on your table. He loves to play games. Well, this afternoon, April 20th, 2022, I was writing script for tonight's Earthfiles YouTube channel broadcast when there was a bing that sounded as a news notification flashed onto my computer screen with this headline from Motherboard Tech by Vice. Quote, "Newly released documents shed light on government-funded research into wormholes, anti-gravity, and invisibility cloaks," close quote, reported by Anna Marion. The subtitle says, quote, "A tranche of documents released to Motherboard through FOIA show the research priorities of the secretive Advanced Aerospace Weapons Systems Application Program, known as ASAP," close quote. That is a Pentagon office also associated with ATIP, the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, run by DIA analyst Luis Elizondo from 2007 to 2012, that was funded by the congressional bill sponsored by the late U.S. Senator Harry Reid in the photo above this headline, where titles and sketches from the new FOIA release are supered over Senator Reid's photograph. This is one of the hundreds of FOIA now unclassified pages that caught my eye because of the title, quote, "Warp Drive, Dark Energy, and the Manipulation of Extra Dimensions," close quote. I clicked on that title and came to this page, and when I read further, I came to this Table 1, transit times to various exotic destinations at 100 times the speed of light. And the table gives astronomical destinations and transit times at that enormous speed in which we could get from Earth to Mars in 193 seconds. And this page and illustration talk about the Alcubierre warp drive that could accomplish 100 times the speed of light by traveling in quantum tunnels where your spacecraft is pulling its destination to you by warping space-time and not having to travel across vast spaces of light years. A few pages later is this provocative subtitle, quote, "Dark Energy as a Higher Dimensional Artifact," close quote. Other dimensions, from this third-dimensional matter reality that we're in on Earth, to fourth, fifth, and on up to 12 dimensions, are often described for humans by other intelligences during abduction experiences. In September 2021 and in January of 2022, I did Earthfiles YouTube broadcasts with New York City graphic designer Adam Burns about his ongoing experiences with a tall green praying mantis who collaborates with an ancient tall thin gray, smaller grays, and glowing teal blue beings. Adam, now 54 years old, says the praying mantis is trying to help Adam mentally, physically, and spiritually to be more prepared for a great shift coming in human consciousness that will affect this Earth in this decade of 2020 to 2030. And the new big truths will include, at last, that humans are not alone in this universe, that the serpents of Genesis in the Bible are hostile to humans and are still based deep underground on Earth, the planet those ancient reptilians want for themselves, according to information that he has received. Further, the United States Space Force has long been secretly training with advanced extraterrestrials in several different solar systems, learning space war technology and how to travel light years in only days through space tunnels that connect point to point in space-time. In order to remember more details about his training sessions with the praying mantis and the other beings, Adam periodically does a hypnosis session that is recorded so that he can study it. Recently, he worked with hypnotherapist Mary Truitt in New York, whose website is healingacrosstime.com. And this past weekend, Adam talked on the record with me about this troubled and unstable decade. And I wondered if Adam received information from the praying mantis about the U.S. Space Force working in several different solar systems right now, information that I was given a year ago in 2021 by an aerospace insider. I wondered, from the hypnosis sessions that you've had and the communication with the praying mantis, have you been told that a human, Homo sapiens sapiens, Space Force, are now working in different solar systems?
I asked them about that, and they said, yes, this is true. This is happening. Yes, there is a Space Force. Yes, humans are working off-world with advanced beings and incredible craft and with incredible technology, but it's their ships, their technology, and their decisions about who goes where and what we get to see and who we get to meet, because they are very concerned about polluting our evolution, the butterfly effect. They just can't have a ripple effect that's wrong, and they can't deprive us of learning something on our own. So they're delicately trying to show us things and let us make fast evolutionary leaps with things like the Space Force and things like the hybridization program, not shattering our natural growth. So the Space Force enterprise is a fantastic thing that actually has humans going far deep into space, and it's as much for the other beings that will be dealing with humans in the future on an equal footing, diplomacy. It's as much for them as it is for us to meet humans and work with humans, as well as humans in Space Force learning the technology and learning how everything is connected and how it all works.
How many reptilians and others are in the hostile category from your knowledge?
I was shown two different kinds of reptilians when I asked about who were working against us. There are so many different species here that are observing, a handful that are actively working with us, and a handful that are working against us. But they told me primarily the group that are most malevolent towards us on Earth are reptilians. The primary group that want to do the most harm and that are most active in damaging human affairs and bringing us toward ruin are these reptilians that are native to Earth. They evolved before us, and they resent our domination of the Earth and would like us gone.
They resent our presence.
Yes.
And that implies that we were brought into being by genetic manipulation in already evolving primates by some other species than the reptilians?
Yes, the reptilians on Earth, that group of reptilians predate us and did evolve on Earth, but there are other reptilians that have visited here that also want to do harm to us. There are other reptilians who are trying to help us. I was shown two groups of reptilians, and the first kind had a head like a T-Rex with a long snout and bared fangs and goldish yellow eyes with vertical pupils, crocodile eyes. Mostly the shape of the snout is more like a T-Rex. They're very big and very scary looking, muscular and green scales, very intimidating hands with 3 long claws and 3 muscular fingers that have claws on the end, and really fierce energy comes off from the one they showed me.
And where are they based?
I was shown the Earth like in a map form. The bases were under the coast of California, from like the bottom of California up to most of San Francisco, and then it sweeps out into an arc to the Pacific, going west and then south like a hook. Then it's quite large going in from the coast upwards towards about half of Utah, and then going eastwards across northern New Mexico and northern Texas and petering out in Oklahoma. They're massive underground networks. It goes across 3 states. They're very deep underground. They're under the ocean in several areas. So that's deep.
If there is a hostile group of reptilians that are like T-Rexes, and that they have been on this planet long before standing up primate Homo sapiens sapien, and they are hostile to us, why are there reptilians that want to help humans if their species in general want humans gone from Earth so the reptilians can claim Earth for themselves without us on it?
I think the answer to that is that they're not a hive-minded species like many of the gray species or like mantid and other species. They're a herd species like us. And so you can't ascribe one ideology to the entire species the way you could with some grays. They really are a hive mind, all thinking the same thing. There are minorities on Earth that pursue peace.
Yeah.
And there are some of these ancient reptilians that want to help us and that take risks to help us.
Can you paint the scene for the general world audience of where you are, what is the environment around you, and who is showing you these geographical maps of where the reptilians that are hostile are based underneath inside of our planet? What is the environment you're in learning this?
I was taken to a small ship, the usual dome-shaped ships, and I had a long session with my hybrid children, and I got to meet more of them, and it was tremendous, and there was a lot going on there. And then they took me into another room where the mantid being that I've met many times, that is very much a teacher, a very wise and very loving and patient and hyper-intelligent being, was there. And because I was with these children, we were all sitting on the floor, actually. But then the mantids started showing me things, and they often show things in representation. Then your mind would just go there. When I had asked about the negative forces working against us here on Earth now, I was shown a very dark cave, a very dark, shadowy place, and there was these 2 beings standing there. There was one that was the classic reptilian that I described, with the head very much like a T-Rex. And then another being that was the same size, just standing there next to it. It was more snake-like. It was humanoid, but its head was literally like a snake. It had quite a petite face, smaller face, much smaller than the big snout of the other reptilian. But also the face was even shorter snout, and it was light-colored scales. Down its chest was like the underbelly of a snake, light golden. It didn't have a tail. It was much slimmer than a human, but I couldn't gauge their size.
Was it standing in front of you humanoid style?
Yep, just standing there. And they weren't wearing any clothing, but I didn't notice any genitalia with this snake-like one. It was standing there right in front of me for my educational purposes, and it wasn't doing anything.
I sent you the Babylonian demons that have been sculpted as humanoid reptiles long ago and have been researched by universities. Are any of those heads of the alleged Babylonian demons anything like the reptilian ETs that you have seen?
Yes, and also in a lot of other artwork throughout the centuries all over the world, you see these beings. But what is interesting about these ones and about that area of Mesopotamia and Babylonia is you see the beings like the second one I described that are more snake-like. I'll just pull up the image that you sent. The two larger ones at each end have the larger snout like the first reptilian, particularly the one on the left, whereas the two in the middle have the more snake-like smaller faces, smaller snouts. So they really do resemble them. I found a couple more images from 6200 BC from the Ubaid culture, two of them of snake-like faces, one of them holding a baby. They have definitely the same sort of face as the one I saw. I do have a theory that that is probably what Enki would have looked like of the Anunnaki. Enki and Ninhursag are the two Anunnaki scientists who made the first humans, according to Sumerian tablets.
And isn't it important that this is your most recent hypnosis session, and you are trying to probe your own experiences that are being presented to you by the praying mantis and the others? And so it would be the praying mantis who has shown you these snake-headed beings.
Yes, that's a good point. Where would they show me that? The first group of reptilians are the ones who are doing us so much harm. This was a very informative session. It was 3 hours long. Most of it was things that they wanted me to learn and to experience with my hybrid children.
In this session, what did you come away from it feeling was the most important content to the praying mantis in communicating to you?
Well, it's like they monitor me all the time, and I've given them permission to do that. And so they always know my concerns and my struggles. So they know that I'm trying to learn and get to the next level and the next level and just get deeper into this understanding of everything, of how it all functions and what's really going on and what's ahead for us. But I think they wanted to show me something really beautiful this time that I think is really powerful. There was one really huge thing that they showed me, and that was our future as a species. We make it. We do transcend. We actually get through all of the tough times that we're going through and the tough times that are to come, and we get to a point where we do transcend to a higher consciousness. I couldn't believe it that it showed me that, because they're very cagey about sharing any information, let alone things that are ahead for us. They can move backwards and forwards in time easily and be in more than one time place at the same time.
And your experience now with the praying mantis, as you have evolved, this is your most recent hypnosis session that we have been discussing this content. You honestly feel that the praying mantis wants you and humanity to wake up, to become knowledgeable, and to evolve to another dimension.
Yes, exactly. That's what they want. They're trying to help us. We've just got to get this out into the open. We've got to talk about this. It's like we're standing in a crowd pretending we're alone. That's delusional. We are surrounded by life. Even our own discovery of exoplanets is showing that it would be unlikely for all of them to not harbor life. The best thing we can do is to change our own thinking and just feel comfortable about talking about this.
I actually first heard about extraterrestrial biological entities living deep underground in this planet about 23 years ago. And it was in that meeting that I've told you about, having happened in December of 1999, when a man in the World Bank had organized a meeting for me with a man who was retiring from the Defense Intelligence Agency. And it still remains the single most extraordinary 7-hour discussion of my life. And he began that particular meeting by explaining that in his work, that his job for 23 years for the Defense Intelligence Agency had been to monitor and analyze the conflict between three competing, he used that word competing, extraterrestrial civilizations on this planet. The way in December of 1999 that he explained to me who those three competing extraterrestrial civilizations were: Reptilian, Ancient, and that the reptilians, from his point of view, like to go down deep in the Mesopotamian desert regions of the earth, but that they would also be in a category that he and others knew, that there were beings like Nordics who, water, land, it doesn't seem to matter what it is. They can take their craft down through anything. They can go down through the basins, the bottom of the oceans and the seas, exactly as Adam was describing in his discussion with the praying mantis. And then they make their base on the earth, whatever is the depth of the ocean or the sea, but they're going down below it. So the water is like an insulator from the surface of the earth where humans are. And that the Greys have historically always liked to be inside mountains on this planet. And I remember that he specifically talked about the Himalayas and other mountain ranges that our government has known have been occupied by the Greys, and that those three, the Reptilians, the Greys, and the Nordics, that man specifically talked about the blonde, blue-eyed Nordics, have competed. And he was the first one to imply that they had conflict with each other, in competition with each other, because Earth was considered to be a laboratory, and that each wanted this planet for their own work, for their own base, and they didn't want to be bothered by the others. But through, and if you all remember, I've used the term 270 million years. The DIA analyst told me that our government had proof that these three competing extraterrestrial civilizations had been interacting with this planet and manipulating genetic material, manipulating various life forms for at least 270 million years. And another interesting piece from that discussion that I've said before, but I think it's really important to put a context, that where Adam is communicating with the praying mantis, that the DIA guy said, one of the things that puzzles us is that the Greys have demonstrated for us how they can move matter into another timeline and it disappears. And so the 6 mile in diameter rock asteroid that 266 million years ago crashed into Earth in the Gulf of Mexico in what is now called the Chicxulub crater. It took out the dinosaurs that dominated the planet. And that DIA analyst 23 years ago, he said to me, we wonder if this was done on purpose, because the dinosaurs were one of, let's say, the Greys' experiments, and that it dominated the Earth, and they wanted to change what was happening on the planet. Did they create that asteroid end of the reptilian dinosaurs, or did somebody else? But that whatever way it went, whatever was the source, even nature, the Greys could have moved the 6 mile asteroid into another dimension or timeline, and they didn't. And those seem to me to be very, very relevant pieces of history. At least I'm sharing with you what I was told in great depth by a man who worked for the DIA, who was retiring 23 years ago, and that now Adam is getting communication from the praying mantis and the beings that work with the praying mantis, that we're in another difficult and unstable decade. And for those of you who have been coming to my Earthfiles YouTube channel for the last 4 years, you know that it was in the first year that I was doing the channel that I shared a lot of information from a physicist who had worked at Area 51, that I met him at a conference in 2014. He told me in 2014 that he had been privileged to be aware of government information from apparently extraterrestrials, that between the year 2020 and 2030, I'm hearing that from him in 2014, that there would be one or more events that would reduce the population of the world very much. And it could involve floods around the planet. It could involve prominences from the sun that could scorch surfaces and bring down huge grids that we depend upon now. He had a variety of what could be existential, existential stress on humanity in 2020 to 2030. And we're now in April of 2022, and all of us are aware of the terrible anguish that is going on in Ukraine. What more will come? How much more? Will this be the decade of decades on Earth? But Adam, being shown in his mind's eye, communicating with the advanced praying mantis, is still given information that he wanted me to know, that the praying mantis sees that humanity is not exterminated, that humanity has a future, that our souls are considered to be extremely important and valuable. So no matter what is happening, hang on to that concept. And it may be that if 144,000 or some number of humans in this difficult decade begin concentrating on down with entropy, up with light, that if we are told that we're not alone in this universe and that there are intelligences who would like to see us survive, evolve, and join them, if we all can be given that information, it might change a future that had a piece in it of devastation. I think we, as human beings with souls that become connected to the consciousness of this universe and know that that is possible and real, we can, together, we can change a future with a devastation in it to one, as Adam described so beautifully, that we will be allowed to ascend. And because I think that that part of our discussion last weekend in a very, very much longer interview is important to share with all of you, next week I'm going to do a part 2, and it will include that information that Adam was shown in his mind's eye, because the beings are always showing humans images, that our future is one of ascent, not annihilation, and that he is working on an illustration that will go with that. But there were also other parts of our discussion that I found so fascinating that I hope that you would too. And one of my questions to him that I would like you to hear and be able to make your own comments on next week is, why are we in a universe where everything has to eat something else to survive? So now, on that note, sort of bridging tonight's segment interview with Adam Burns in New York, and that I would like to add the second part, which goes into other facets next week. I would love to hear your comments, your questions, your feedback on tonight. So Ian, thank you for being there. And what kind of feedback have we right now?
Thank you, Linda, and thank you for bringing us that wonderful presentation by Adam. That was well received, and we look forward to part 2.
Good. I'm just curious if any people are saying, I've heard this before, I have heard something about underground bases, or I just wonder if there's feedback from anyone similar to what Adam is describing.
Yes, Lisa Savoy in the chat says his picture of his reptilians are very similar to mine, the ones that I see. Lisa Savoy is an experiencer and has a book out as well.
Yeah, because that is a terrifying T-Rex kind of, and I think that Adam's detail in his drawings are so superb that you can almost feel that creature breathing. What else have we got? Is he in there? Have we
Here
lost?
I am, Linda.
Okay.
Linda, here's a question for you. I wonder if there is a connection between the loud underground rumblings, trumpets in the skies, and a subterranean species.
I thought exactly the same question this week after talking with Adam and being reminded again about my own 1999 discussion with that DIA analyst, where he was describing how the non-humans can go in many places deep underground inside of mountains. And what if our government is, and other governments have the difficult challenge of knowing that there's competition and conflict between, let's say, 3 different civilizations over Earth, and that maybe the government, in trying to get to a place where they want to open this up, I hope in truth and honesty for finally, maybe they are trying to destroy places where there have been bases. Who knows? It has been going on since 2011. Why that year? Why that date? This is 2022. So that means for 11 years, the huge booms that shake houses and windows and crack cement come to some places where they know that it's like a compression wave from above. Other places, it's strong energy from below. Why those differences? And why is it that it is so focused? That has always been the biggest puzzle. How can you have a house on one side of a street that there is cracks in the cement, in the foundation? This happened. The family heard the windows rattling, and they run out into their front yard. And on the 3 neighbors to the right, never heard a thing. I think it was 5 houses across the street. It's an Earthfiles report from about 8, 9 years ago. And nobody across the street, only that one house. And that has been how sort of pinpointed some of these have been. Others in Arizona and California, the booms have been heard over wide swaths where many people have heard and their windows have shaken. Why these differences? And could it be that it's related to a technology that our government is using, having something to do with the conflict with something that may be based on this planet, and maybe they're trying to get them out of the Earth before they make the public announcement? These are speculations, but it is a question worth putting back to all of you, because I know that there are scientists who are watching this program. I know that there are medical people. I know that there are aerospace people, because I get your private confidential communications. If anybody has any more insight into these surgical booms that constantly end up with seismic people saying, no, it was not an earthquake. What is it? And that's all of that relates, Ian, to what you ask, which is a very good question.
That's right. And people have also referenced the indigenous peoples, saying that they talked about ant people who lived in tunnels under the earth, saved them from a flood. That's from the North American indigenous and First Nation people.
Yes, and the Hopi. I'm in the land where Hopi and Navajo, and the Hopi had pictograms and stories about them being down underground, and there were ant people and there were other kinds of beings in already existing tunnels and large rooms beneath where the Indians were based above.
Okay, Linda, we've got some people speculating about the hostile ETs, etc. If they are hostile, why haven't they attacked us? Is there some universal law that is holding them back?
Go back to my December 1999 discussion with the DIA analyst. He said the three had been in conflict. And maybe I didn't add the sentence that would be clarifying that he and I talked about. I'm trying not to be overly graphic. But the DIA analyst 23 years ago said that the Nordics, the blondes, think of the Vikings type, had been trying to annihilate the reptilians. And the reptilians had been trying to annihilate the Nordics, and that the Greys seemed to play all sides in a more complicated way. Well, if you've got two very advanced groups on one planet and a third that may do with both of them, but the two want to annihilate each other, those two are taking care of each other. In other words, the Nordics are not letting the reptilians take the surface of the Earth and humans. That's the way it was sort of bluntly explained to me. So it would mean that we have had allies in other intelligences to sort of evolving Homo sapien in all of its different manifestations on Earth, with very advanced non-humans watching all of this, with the ability to block anything that would try to exterminate humans if they have an interest in Homo sapiens sapien, which apparently there is a great deal of interest. And so it would mean that we are in a strange way historically indebted to conflict between extraterrestrial civilizations that would be strong enough that we would be protected in their fight with each other. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess it does. We'd like to know as well if elements of our government encountered these hostile beings in their underground base. There are stories about the Dulce conflict, etc.
I have talked with some of the Yicarilla Apaches in Dulce about that very question. And you get kind of mixed protective answers. I understand the Yicarillas, from their point of view, Dulce and that's their territory. And I think that we will never know the full extent of what has happened there, because the Yicarillas are very, very, very protective about the good things, the bad things, and everything in between. And the government doesn't want there to be big headlines in the New York Times and the Washington Post about there having some kind of a laser or whatever it was fight with underground, maybe reptilians, maybe Greys and reptilians. It's hard to get a fix because the Greys seem to play all sides, us and whoever else is here. And I know that what has been on the web, others have attacked as saying that it was sensationalist and didn't happen. But the people who attack what has been written on the web don't provide any other alternative information. And so we're in that terrible situation where we have been denied so many facts for so long about the presence of others on this planet. And now it is easy for people to say it's and dismiss. I frankly think that it was talking with the Icarias that convinced me that there is some kind of a history there, and that some of them know more about it than others. But I don't know if we're going to get a full public firsthand story. It's been a very, very difficult story, and that's as much as I can contribute tonight, because I don't really know what the real facts are. So, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if somebody in the government and people in the Icarias have what would be considered substantial proof that there have been underground dwellings, if they're not there now, that they have been in the past, and that maybe some of the boom activity has been related to trying to get some underground intelligence out of places like Dulce. But that, again, this is speculation. We need honest, straightforward reporting from our Department of Defense about those issues. Yeah, Ian. I'm going to have to get the bell to ring for Ian.
Don't worry, Linda. Okay, can I do the super chats? Here we go. Goldie Olvido Baroa, Tay Batal, Whisper of Love, Annabelle Solon, Christina Ledesma Jimenez, Stephanie Sometimes, Shane Payne, Traz, Linda Emeterio, Obi-Wan, Christina Gomez, Transgressive Scientist, Steve Adamski, Daniel Gomez, and Nell. Thank you very much for your contributions tonight.
Yes, thank you, everybody. Everything helps to try to keep all of this going forward. So I really appreciate you guys. Thank you. Thank you.
Linda, could you remind everyone to hit the like button and also subscribe? We're about 10 subscribers short of 206,000 subscribers now.
You hear that, you guys? You who have not subscribed could get us over 206,000 tonight, right now, if you click that red arrow in the lower right of your screen. And it doesn't cost you anything in terms of money. It helps us as a program in the Earthfiles YouTube universe. And for those of you who appreciate and like the Earthfiles YouTube channel, click on the like button. And Hannah, if you're there, my beautiful, beautiful 7-year-old granddaughter, so bright, so beautiful, I love you. It was so wonderful seeing you this past Easter week. And I'm so glad that you're home okay. And people said that you were putting hearts out. So that's why I'm saying hello, if you're still there. Is Hannah still there?
She was in the chat earlier. There were lots of hearts flowing, and people were interacting with her, so hopefully she's still there. Hannah's channel, are you there?
Well, I'll tell her tomorrow that she can go back and watch, and that I said hello to her through the screen. But now, what else have we got from our people who are there now?
All right, Linda. Has anybody ever seen any energy-based mantids wearing an octagonal jewel device on their chest or thorax?
Praying mantises that glow in the head. That is the most common description. That is the first description that I received when I was producing my 2-volume book, Glimpses of Other Realities, Volume 1 and 2. And there are beautiful and very accurate illustrations by various people in the human abduction syndrome who show the praying mantis with this gold light that it can emanate from its head. That's what I know. In the grays, there's a variety of gray types, and many of those also in my books. They are illustrated with something that comes down with a jewel or something that looks like a jewel to a human, meaning it may be translucent, it may shine, It may have light that pulses in it, but the abductee really doesn't know what it is, except that it looks like a necklace. And then you get all these different descriptions. And so many people have illustrated throughout the last, going back to the late 50s and the early 60s. You will find these illustrations with what looks like a necklace around a gray. Others, more recently, just in the last couple of years, I have talked with people in military and with a military background and an intel background. And the impression that I've gotten is that a lot of these are technologies that the beings wear, and we perceive it to be a necklace, but that it is a way that they are interacting with controlling gravity or whatever. So again, we are trying to understand through the experiences of humans and what they see and what they draw, but they don't understand. And we need so much a global agreement for the entire political structure of the planet in all countries, if possible, to tell the truth so we can know as a civilization answers to these questions as a global species. That has always been my prayer, that eventually we will begin to have the dialogue that I'm having with Adam Burns and other people is the kind of dialogue that I think we should be having on the planet. The whole planet should be in these discussions. Then maybe we would have more courage about our future. What else, Ian?
Michael Perez has said, he says, I've had a timeline break where entities let me enjoy either an alternative lifetime or my future. The experience started when I was 11, living in Newport Beach, California.
Can you read more about, did they present him, here is a future that you can have and we can guarantee, or this is the present, and how was it framed by the ETs?
Well, I've reached out to Michael and asked him if he can contact us and give us a bit more information. He can contact us via email at earthfiles@earthfiles.com.
Yes, and the whole issue of time, the control of time, the beings that come from apparently fourth and fifth dimensions have the ability, when they come into the third dimensional matter universe, they can then control time like we would a rheostat on a wall. That it is a physics, but from the human point of view, we're in a third dimensional matter world, and we don't have the ability to reach out to something in the future and something in the past and bring them right in front of us and show them to other people. But apparently that is part of the technology of advanced civilizations that are in other frequencies. And again, that's a kind of physics that we don't have dialogue as a civilization on Earth about, but it is clearly happening in private conversations in aerospace in the government, and it is clearly happening in firsthand experiences between people in the abduction syndrome and a variety of different beings, the ability to move, match, split, reverse, go future, back. Time can be controlled. And how that would be used by beings who can manipulate time to three-dimensional beings who can't even grok the concept. Without education, it's just kind of left there as confusing. And I think often that people in the abduction syndrome, they don't know whether they've just had a dream or what. So in this issue, if there has been a presentation, if that's what it was, Ian, here's a future life you could have. Here's this route. Why were the ETs doing that, if that's what it was? And what did he choose, and what have the consequences been? That's what we need to hear.
Michael says he's emailing us right now as we speak.
Oh, good. Well, if you get it, and we have about 5 more minutes, maybe we can close that around if it comes in.
Yeah, he's probably emailing you directly, though.
Okay,
so
okay,
if there's
that's
anything
all right.
else I can add, I'll add it in the last 5 minutes.
Yeah, and I'll bring it up next week if it's me that gets the communication. So go
Okay,
ahead.
Linda. Obi-Wan says he loves your thumbnail picture of you in front of the pyramids in Egypt. Can you tell us a little bit more about that day?
It was I believe it was 82, and I was married and happy and working at Channel 7 and CBS and doing documentaries, and all of my work was, I had many different awards. So I'm trying to say I was a successful director. That was my title at the CBS station, Director of Special Projects at the CBS station in Denver. My husband worked for Time Inc. in their cable division. We had Laura, and our daughter, and a wonderful dog and cats, and everything was very happy. In January or February of 1982, at the beginning of the year, I had some kind of very vivid dream. And I can remember going and telling my husband, I explained this, and I said, I am left with, it feels like a compulsion that I must go to Egypt this year before Egypt is gone. Now, at that time in 1982, none of us knew anything about what would eventually happen in Egypt. That was chaos and military and disintegration and threats and all sorts of things. But what I'm sharing with you, because it's happened several times in my life, where a vivid dream that leaves me with a compulsion has guided where I have gone and what I have done and what I have seen and evolved. And I'm sure that there are other people who have this experience, but for the most part, I think most humans are reluctant to tie decisions that they make to vivid dreams, when it's my impression that vivid dreams play a huge role in human life. Well, when I talked to my husband about it, we ended up, he said, well, let's plan a trip. And we went for 2 weeks, and that picture, my then husband, Larry Howe, he took that picture of me. I think it was in the first hour or two when we got to Cheops. What is interesting, beyond, the whole trip was extraordinary. And we saw and experienced an amazing variety of things. But at the risk, because that's why all of us don't tell these really important things in our life, because we're afraid we will be judged, we will be considered less, there will be sarcasm if we are outside of certain acceptable borders. But I think it's significant because the vivid dream was that I must go to Egypt before it is gone. Well, while we were there, we were in the Winter Palace, when we were in Cairo, various things happened in which I was having vivid impressions, tremendous impressions, almost, and I said to my husband, it's like I'm in an overlay. It is like I have lived here before, and I'm back, which was like the vivid compulsion, or you must go to Egypt before it's gone. And on this one that I'm going to share tonight, at the risk, I know that some people who have not had these experiences don't relate. But it may have something to do with the whole issue of souls that recycle and that reincarnation truly is the machinery of this universe. That's what a gray being allegedly said telepathically to a U.S. Air Force captain in the late 1940s, early 50s. And this is supposedly recorded on film, that when the U.S. Air Force captain was asked to ask the gray telepathically, is reincarnation real? The being replied, and it went down into this logbook and is now apparently formal history somewhere. Yes, reincarnation, the recycling of souls, is the machinery of this universe. And right now, just before I tell you this short version of one of these astonishing things that happened to me in that trip in Egypt that my husband took that photo that you're asking about. Brad just passed from Ian. We just went through 206,000 subscribers. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And as long as we keep doing that, I will have more courage to tell you some of the things that have happened to me in my life like this. We were at the long hall, I think it was called the Hall of Women, and it had to do with a variety of various goddesses and gods, males and females. And I think we were at the Winter Palace area. And I was staring because there was this long column where the statues of the females were up approximately, I'm guessing now, something like maybe 15 feet above the ground, and then were the statues, the statuary Hall of Women. And Larry had started already to go over there. And something sort of stopped me. I don't know, I do not understand the physics of this, I'm just telling you what happened. And I stopped where I'm looking down the hallway from a distance, probably of 100 or 200 feet. So I have never walked in this life on those stones before. I've never been in the Hall of Women before. I just stopped. And where I stopped, I'm looking straight down the hall. And then it was, if somebody had put me on an air column that rose me up into the air approximately 15 feet at the base of where all those statues, I experienced it. There was a part of me that knew I'm still standing where I was standing, but another part of me, as vivid as the matter part, rose up in the air, and now I had the experience of being 15 feet up in the air, looking through the statuary of the Hall of Women at the height at which those statues showed them. And then I came back. It was very orderly, meaning it had a beginning and a middle and an end. And when I became back down, sort of at where my shoes were touching the rocks, I had no idea why this occurred, but I knew that I had gone out of my body in a controlled way for a very specific perspective and was returned so that it was all vivid. I can feel it now. I remember how it felt. And the whole thing, I think, had to do with training and education about how you can go out of your body, the work of Monroe. You can go out of your body, you can explore. You can explore the whole planet and not leave your bed or a chair. we're not a civilization that trains that to the whole world. But if reincarnation, the recycling of souls, is the machinery of the universe, then every one of you has done this at some other time in some other place. And why is reincarnation, the recycling of souls, the machinery of this universe? I'll get into that next week a little bit with Adam Burns. Thank you for breaking through 206,000 tonight. I look forward to hearing from you, your questions and your comments. And next week, we'll do more. I love you guys.
Turn on closed captions for YouTube videos by clicking the white CC button on the lower right. The default language for Linda's videos is English. If you would like to see the captions in another language, click on the white settings button next to the CC button. Select Subtitles CC and then select Auto Translate. Select a language, and the captions will now appear in that language.
Sort of gone through, and they will hold their heads. I never had a cat do that before. And they'll pull against the comb, helping me get out snarls. And I think it's the best they've ever been.